Abraham, the friend of Elohim, was tested at the highest levels and was found to be faithful in all his works. When we think about the command that went forth from the Father, that Abraham was to offer up Isaac his son, many questions arise. Mainly, why? Today, it's time we took a deeper look and received some long-awaited answers. May Yahuah be blessed forever. Welcome, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Parable of the Vineyard YouTube live stream. My name is Adam, your host, and I welcome you. Tonight we're going to be discussing an event surrounded in Genesis chapter 22, known as the sacrifice of Isaac, or the binding of Isaac. And it's truly one of the most peculiar and prophetic events in all of Scripture. And what most people don't know is there's a lot more to this story that was not included in the canon, that really kind of gives you the whole backstory of how we even got here and why the judge of all the earth would ask Abraham to do this. So I pray that it's a blessing for you, and let's get started. We're going to start with two passages found within the canon, Joshua 10:13, which reads, "And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day." So there is a book mentioned within the Scriptures called the book of Jasher. One more time it's mentioned, 2 Samuel 1:18, also he bade them to teach the children of Yahudah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. So we have two witnesses to this book being something legitimate. And a lot of people would argue and say that the book of Jasher that we read today is not the same one. I don't agree. So let's actually just quickly, briefly familiarize ourselves with what is written in Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did try Avraham and said unto him, Avraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now your son, your Yachid, your beloved son, Yitzchak, whom you love, and get you into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I tell you of. And so I'm not going to read the rest of Genesis 22, because most of you are very familiar with how this goes down. What I do want to focus on tonight is probably some stuff you may have not heard before. Some of you may have. This will be a great refresher. Again, the backstory of how we got to this, and how, again, the Most High could ask Abraham to do this thing, and what a test of faith this is. And we know that we are the seed of Abraham by faithfulness in the Messiah, Yahusha. And we have to ask ourselves, do we have the same kind of faith that Abraham has? And surely I don't think the Most High would ask any of us to do this. However, what a great example for us to follow, that we are to follow the voice of the Most High. So we're going to go to the book of Jasher, chapter 22, starting at verse 40. And Yitzchak, the son of Avraham, was growing up in those days, and Avraham, his father, taught him in the way of Yahuah, to know Yahuah, and Yahuah was with him. And when Yitzchak, that's Isaac, was 37 years old, Ishmael, his brother, was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Yitzchak, saying, I was 13 years old when Yahuah spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of Yahuah, which he spoke to my father. And I gave my soul unto Yahuah, and I did not transgress his word, which he commanded my father. And Yitzchak answered Ishmael, saying, Why dost thou boast to me about this, about a little bit of thy flesh, which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which Yahuah commanded you? As Yahuah liveth, the Elohim of my father Avraham, if Yahuah should say unto my father, Take now thy son Yitzchak, and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it. So this idea actually originated from Yitzchak, Isaac's mouth. So let's continue. Just remember that for a second. And Yahuah heard the word that Yitzchak spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of Yahuah, and he thought to try Avraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of Elohim came and placed themselves before Yahuah, and Satan also came with the sons of Elohim before Yahuah. So just like we saw in the book of Job. And Yahuah said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered Yahuah and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahuah said to Satan, What is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered Yahuah and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve you, and remember you when they require anything from you. And when thou givest them the thing which they require from you, they sit at their ease and forsake thee, and they remember thee no more. Hast thou seen Avraham the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served thee, and erected altars to thee wherever he came, and he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Yitzchak is born to him, he has forsaken you. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and Yahuah he has forgotten. For amidst all that he has done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering, nor peace offering, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth till now, being 37 years, he built no altar before you, nor brought any offering to you. For he saw that you did give him what he requested before you, and therefore he forsook you. And Yahuah said to Satan, Hast thou thus considered my servant Avraham? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and upright man before me, one that feareth Elohim and avoideth evil. As I live, were I to say unto him, Bring up Yitzchak thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered Yahuah and said, Speak now then unto Avraham as thou hast said, and you will see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. So a lot going on here, but long story short, we have Isaac and Ishmael going back and forth in the tent. And Ishmael's boasting to Isaac, and Isaac's like, listen, if the Most High were to require me to be a burnt sacrifice, I'd do it willingly. And, the Most High heard his words. And, that's something that we need to take into consideration, that all words matter. And this is a great lesson for us. Proverbs 18:21, we know that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. More specifically, Matthew 12:36 through 37, this is from Messiah. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. And this is truly a lesson for all of us, that everything that proceeds out of our mouths is heard, all is witnessed. And so the Most High heard the words of Isaac, and he said, we'll give it a shot. We'll see how this goes. I know that Abraham will be faithful. And we saw Satan going back and forth with the Most High and kind of being that prosecutor, the adversary, the accuser, if you will. Kind of the same thing we saw with Job. We see actually some very similar language that we saw with Job as well. And the other interesting thing is Satan accused Abraham of not giving or having a burnt offering for the Most High for 37 years. And we don't see the Most High rebuking him, saying that that's a lie. Maybe that's the truth. We don't know. But it appears that was the case. So let's continue, and we're going to see a lot more here. Book of Jasher, chapter 23. At that time, the word of Yahuah came to Avraham, and this has actually taken on a whole new meaning for a lot of us recently, because we do know that Messiah is the word of Yahuah, and we know that eventually the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we know him as Messiah, Yahusha. So we see here the word of Yahuah come to Avraham, and he said unto him, Avraham, and he said, Here I am. And he said to him, Take now thy son, thine only son whom thou lovest, even Yitzchak, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which shall be shown to you. For there wilt thou see a cloud and the glory of Yahuah. And let me pause here real quick while we're here, just because I don't think it's widely known, but the land of Moriah is actually very, very important. Just to give you a quick overview. So we know that Avraham offered up Yitzchak there as a burnt, or was asked to do so. And of course, we know how the story ends, that a replacement, a substitute was given for Yitzchak. And we know that eventually Messiah Yahusha became the substitute for all of us for for the sacrifice of sin. So praise Yah for that. David actually was told to purchase the threshing floor of the Jebusite and to build up an altar and offer up an offering there. Later on, Solomon ended up picking that very same spot, and that's where the Temple Mount was actually placed, was on Mount Moriah. And then we know Messiah Yahusha was crucified right outside of the temple, and just right outside of Moriah. So this whole area is that whole area of Moriah is actually very, very special. So continuing in Jasher chapter 23, verse 3, And Avraham said within himself, How shall I separate my son Yitzchak from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before Yahuah? And this is the other thing about this this little portion we're going to read, is it gives us a lot of what's going on. Can you imagine what would be going through Abraham's mind when he'd be like, oh, I got to tell Sarah this. What am I going to say? So we get to see that. And Avraham came into the tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife, and he spoke these words to her. My son Yitzchak is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of his Elohim. Now tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of Yahuah, for they will teach him to know Yahuah, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before Yahuah, he will answer him. Therefore, there he will know the way of serving Yahuah his Elohim. And Sarah said, Thou hast spoken well. Go, my lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not at a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul. And Avraham said unto Sarah, My daughter, let us pray to Yahuah our Elohim, that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Yitzchak, and he abode all that night with her. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions till morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from you? And she still kissed him and embraced him, and she gave Avraham instructions concerning him. This sounds like what a mom does. And Sarah said to Avraham, O my lord, I pray thee, take heed of thy son, and place thine eyes over him. For I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread. And if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun. Neither let him go by himself on the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say to thee. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Yitzchak, and she gave him instructions till morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Yitzchak her son therewith, and she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban, and she gave them provisions for the road. And they went forth, and Yitzchak went with his father Avraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off the road. And Sarah went out with him, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, Return to the tent. And when Sarah heard the words of her son Yitzchak, she wept bitterly. And Avraham her husband wept with her, and their son wept with them a great weeping. Also those who went with them wept greatly. And Sarah caught hold of her son Yitzchak, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him, and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, Who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see you again? And unfortunately, she did not. She did not see Isaac ever again after this. And they still wept together, but she will see him again, right? And they still wept together, Avraham, Sarah, and Yitzchak, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. And Sarah afterward turned away from her son, weeping bitterly. And all her menservants and maidservants returned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Yitzchak his son to bring him up as an offering before Yahuah, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took 2 of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eliezer his servant, and they went together with them. Whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eliezer, Now my father Abraham is going with Yitzchak to bring him up for a burnt offering to Yahuah, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. And Eliezer answered Ishmael and said, Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldst not inherit anything of all that he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has with all his treasures, but unto me his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desired me? To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses. And whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Yitzchak along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of a contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, Art thou silly or brutish, that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son? For Elohim gave thee a son in thy latter days, in thy old age, and wilt thou go and slaughter him this day because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only son to perish from the earth? Dost thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from Yahuah? For Yahuah cannot do unto man such evil upon the earth to say to him, Go slaughter thy child. And Abraham heard this, and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of Yahuah. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan. And Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. So this is almost like Abraham doing the right thing instead of what happened with the serpent and Eve in the garden, hearkening to the word of the serpent rather than hearkening to the word of the Most High. And Satan returned and came to Yitzchak, and he appeared unto Yitzchak in the figure of a young man, comely and well-favored. And he approached Yitzchak and said unto him, Dost thou not know and understand that thy old silly father bringeth thee to the slaughter this day for naught? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man, and let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth. And Yitzchak heard this, and said unto Abraham, Hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken. And Abraham answered his son Yitzchak and said to him, Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of Elohim. And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them. And he went and passed before them in the road, and he transformed himself to a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Yitzchak and his 2 young men reached that place, and they saw a brook, large and powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks, and they were all terrified on account of the water. And whilst they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Yitzchak, I know this place in which there is no brook nor water. Now therefore it is this Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commands of Elohim. And Abraham rebuked him and said unto him, Yahuah rebuke thee, O Satan, be gone from us, for we go by the commands of Elohim. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land as it was at first. And Abraham went with Yitzchak toward the place that Elohim had told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which Elohim had told of him. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain, and the glory of Yahuah was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Yitzchak, My son, dost thou see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance, that which I see upon it? And Yitzchak answered and said unto his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire, and a cloud, and the glory of Yahuah is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Yitzchak was accepted before Yahuah for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eliezer and unto Ishmael his son, Do you also see that which we see upon the mountain which is at a distance? And they answered and said, We see nothing more than like the other mountains on the earth. And Avraham knew that they were not accepted before Yahuah to go with him. And Avraham said to them, Abide ye here with the ass, whilst I and Yitzchak my son will go to yonder mount and worship there before Yahuah, and then return to you. And Eleazar and Ishmael remained in that place, as Avraham had commanded. And Avraham took wood for a burnt offering, and placed it upon his son Yitzchak. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Yitzchak said to his father, Behold, I see here the fire and the wood, and where then is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before Yahuah? And Avraham answered his son Yitzchak, saying, Yahuah has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Yitzchak said unto his father, I will do all that Yahuah spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. At this point, Yitzchak was probably like, yeah, my words came true. So I'm gonna, and he's a man of integrity. He's a man of honor. And so he's like, I'm going to do what proceeded out of my mouth, right? He could have been like, well, I really didn't mean that. And really, he could have gone in many different ways, but he's like, I said it, let's go. And Avraham again said unto Yitzchak his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this, which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee, O my son, conceal it not from me. And Yitzchak answered his father Avraham and said to him, O my father, as Yahuah liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that has spoken to thee. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am of joyful and cheerful heart in this matter, and I say, Blessed is Yahuah, who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. I want you guys to remember this. We're going to be talking about blessing Yahuah in the face of death, adversity, persecution, anything. It's going to be the last thing we finish up with tonight, so remember this. Blessed is Yahuah, who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Avraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Yitzchak, and they went on and came together to that place that Yahuah had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Avraham was weeping, and Yitzchak took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Avraham took the wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Yitzchak and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before Yahuah. And Yitzchak said to his father, Bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and thereof profane the burnt offering. And Avraham did so. And Yitzchak still said to his father, O my father, when thou shalt have slain me and burnt me for an offering, take with thee that which shall remain of my ashes to bring to Sarah my mother, and say to her, This is the sweet-smelling savor of Yitzchak. But do not tell her this if she should sit near a well or upon any high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. And Avraham heard the words of Yitzchak, and he lifted up his voice and wept when Yitzchak spake these words. And Avraham's tears gushed down upon Yitzchak his son, and Yitzchak wept bitterly. And he said to his father, Hasten thou, O my father, and do with me the will of Yahuah our Elohim, as he has commanded you. And the hearts of Avraham and Yitzchak rejoiced at this thing which Yahuah had commanded them, but the eye wept bitterly, whilst the heart rejoiced. And Avraham bound his son Yitzchak and placed him on the altar, upon the altar of wood. And Yitzchak stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father. Avraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before Yahuah. At that time the angels of mercy came before Yahuah and spake to him concerning Yitzchak, saying, O Yahuah, thou art merciful and compassionate king over all that thou hast created in heaven and in the earth, and thou supportest them all. Give therefore ransom and redemption instead of thy servant Yitzchak, and pity and have compassion upon Avraham and Yitzchak his son, who are this day performing thy commands. Hast thou seen, O Yahuah, how Yitzchak the son of Avraham thy servant is bound down to the slaughter like an animal? Now therefore let thy pity be roused for them, O Yahuah. At that time Yahuah appeared unto Abraham and called to him from heaven and said unto him, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest Elohim in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son, from me. And we know that later on, as the prophecy is, or as history has shown, Yahuah has sent his son and did not withhold, and he had given his son as an offering for all of us. So praise be to Yahuah for sending his word, Messiah Yahusha, for our redemption, being in place of us, all of us being worthy of death. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket by his horns. That was the ram which Yahuah Elohim had created in the earth in the day that he made earth and heaven. For Yahuah had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Yitzchak. And this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his thorns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. So this also answers why the ram was caught in the thicket as well. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him and Satan withholding him, fetched him and brought him before the altar. And he loosened his son Yitzchak from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Yitzchak. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram upon the altar, and he exclaimed and said, This is in the place of my son, and may this be considered this day as the blood of my son before Yahuah. And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, This is in the room of my son, and may it this day be considered before Yahuah in the place of my son. And Abraham finished the whole of the service by the altar, and the service was accepted before Yahuah, and was accounted as if it had been Yitzchak. And Yahuah blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham was yet engaged in the burnt offering before Yahuah. And he said unto her, Dost thou not know all the work that Abraham has made with thine only son this day? For he took Yitzchak and built an altar and killed him, and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Yitzchak cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him. And Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men, who had been with her son, and had come and told her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. And she said, O my son, Yitzchak my son, oh, that I had this day died instead of you. And she continued to weep and said, It grieves me for thee, O my son Yitzchak. Oh, that I had died this day in thy stead. And she continued to weep and said, It grieves me for thee, after that I have reared thee and have brought thee up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over thee. That I had longing for thee, and cried and prayed to Elohim till I bare thee at 90 years old. And now thou hast served this day for the knife and for the fire to be made an offering. But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of Yahuah, for thou didst perform the command of thy Elohim. For who can transgress the word of our Elohim, and whose hand is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Yahuah, our Elohim, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also am rejoiced with thy word which thou didst command, and whilst mine eye wept bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. She afterward rose up and went about making inquiries, till she came to Hebron. And she inquired of all those whom she met walking in the road, and no one could tell her what happened to her son. And she came with her maidservants and menservants to Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. And she asked concerning her son, and she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Yitzchak. And they went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man. And he came and stood before her, and he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto you. For Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, Her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son that her soul went out through joy, and she died and was gathered to her people. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Yitzchak to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah and could not find her, and he made inquiries concerning her. And they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone, for thus was she informed. And Abraham and Yitzchak went to her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Yitzchak fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And where hast thou gone? Oh, how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Yitzchak wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah, and they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. So that is the full story of the binding of Isaac and why it happened, how it happened, all the events surrounding it, and how it actually led to the death of Sarah, Abraham's wife and Yitzchak's mother. And, this story is actually confirmed because in Genesis 23, we see that it says that Sarah was 127 years old. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, the same as Hebron, which, is no short distance, especially, in those days, walking distance or even upon a camel. It's roughly, roughly 14 miles. I'll show you a quick picture of that. Let's see, here we go. So they were living in Gerar, right? And she traveled to Hebron, which is about 15 miles. So it was no short journey. So the book of Jasher actually tells us why Abraham and Sarah were living in Gerar. And while Abraham went with Isaac to Mount Moriah, why she ended up taking a 15 mile journey to Hebron is because she was informed that informed by Satan unknowingly that Isaac was dead, and so she went looking after them, and she died there. And one of the stories behind this story, it's not just an amazing foreshadow of Messiah Yahusha, who died in the place of all of us, but because I think most of you already know that story pretty well. But one of the underlying stories here is the temperament, the patience, and the trust in the Most High that, we see that Sarah had, Isaac had, and Abraham had. Isaac because, he was willingly going to give up his life. Sarah because even though she heard the news falsely, she still blessed the Most High. She wasn't bitter. She didn't backbite. She didn't curse the Most High, because we see that in the book of Job, where we see this testing that was allowed to happen to Job, even though he didn't really deserve it. That's a whole other story, but he was still tested. And what happened? His wife came up to Job and was like, after everything that happened, she's like, you still bless him? She's like, curse God and die, and Job was like, you speak like as someone that's foolish. There's no way. How could I do that to my Elohim, regardless of what happens, right? So the same thing here with Abraham now, especially think about Abraham. Think about this. He was asked by the Most High, or by the word of Yahuah, that came unto him and said, give up your son, offer up your son. Now, remember, let's back up a little bit. This Abraham was, waiting for Isaac all of his life. He waited till he was 100 years old to have Isaac, and he finally got him after so much prayer. Think about it. You don't think that Abraham was praying probably day and night? It doesn't say so in the scriptures, but I imagine he was probably praying day and night, at least very often. Let's just say that, for Isaac, his son. And we see that this was requested of him. Probably his, I would say, most prized possession. But Isaac's not his possession. But you know what I mean. Aside from the Most High, the most important thing in his life. And he was willing to give it up for Elohim, for his word. And so we know that he was willing to do that. But going even further, he did this, and he never saw his wife again. Now think about all that he went through. Could he have, after all that, been like, really? I mean, really? I did all that for you, and now my wife dies? He could have been backbiting. He could have felt sorry for himself. He could have, he could have cursed Elohim and be like, really? I was getting ready to offer up my son and glad you said no. But I was willing to do that, and now my wife is dead, and I won't see her. What's going on here? But he's the faith of Abraham, which is very inspiring, and that's really a lesson for all of us. That no matter, and I'm talking to myself because I've been in situations where I wanted to be like, I don't get it. I don't understand why. And I've got to rebuke myself, and we all have to put ourselves in check and put ourselves in place, that no matter what comes over us in our lives, no matter what kind of testing comes in our life, we've got to endure patiently and know the will of Elohim and know that he sees all. And even if we don't get the recompense that we deserve in this life, that if we trust, believe, and obey, we will be recompensed in the next life. And praise be to Yahuah for that. So really the patience and that is the utmost faith that Abraham has is very inspiring, and I hope it's inspiring to you as well. And to know that, we need to do the deeds of Abraham as it's written, the book of John 8:37-40. This is where he's going back and forth with the Pharisees. And he's saying to the Pharisees, I know that you are Abraham's seed, but you seek to kill me because my word hath no place in you. I speak that which I have seen of my father, and ye do that which ye have seen of your father. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Yahusha saith unto them, If you were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of Elohim. This did not Abraham. But the overarching point of the story is that you would do the works of Abraham. So we need to do the works of Abraham. And what do we need to be doing? We need to be hearkening to his voice with all that we have, with all of our soul, with all of our might, and not deviate to the right hand or to the left. So, are you in a tough situation that you're not delivered from? Are you extremely ill? Are you facing death? Have you lost a family member? Do you have extreme pain? Or do you have extreme sorrow of heart? Has your friends forsaken you? Has your family forsaken you? Whatever it is, have you lost your job, your finances? Whatever the situation is, know that I know it's easy to say, to trust him and to believe and to wait on him, and to know that he is hearing us, though he hears the prayers of the righteous. So, if you're not keeping his commandments, that's a different story. The book of Proverbs says something about those that pray to the Most High that do not keep his law. But that's for another time. But the point is to stay the course, keep the faith, be strong, and be courageous, as Moshe and Joshua said many times. And also, no backbiting, no complaining. And again, I'm talking to myself because I've been guilty of this before, thinking to myself or feeling sorry for myself, like, I'm doing the right thing here. Why I don't deserve this? I don't understand. Did Abraham, did Abraham deserve to lose his wife? Maybe not, but that's just how it happened. And what about think about Joseph. From what we see in the scriptures, Joseph didn't do wrong. Now, he made his brothers jealous because of his dreams and the coat that his father gave him and those kind of things. But was Joseph innocent? Yes, he was. And was he cast into prison? Was he in prison for 13 years for any good reason? Well, yeah, because the Most High was testing him. And when found to be faithful and true, Yahuah elevated him to kingship. What about Jeremiah? The word of Yahuah came unto Jeremiah in the chapter 1 and told him to speak, that he was going to speak unto the nations, and that he would guide him and guard him, and that he would not be touched and no one could overcome him. He would be I think he said it was you know what? Instead of just guessing, it was I think it's Jeremiah 1:18. Let's just look at Jeremiah. I think it's 1. Yeah. 1:18, For behold, I have made you this day a defense city and an iron pillar and brazen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Yehudah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. And they shall fight against you, but shall not prevail against you. For I am with you, saith Yahuah, to deliver you to you. And so what is Jeremiah doing? He's going and preaching to the kings, to the people, and at the gates of their sins, and to turn and to repent. And what happens to Jeremiah? He eventually gets thrown into prison. And Jeremiah at that point could have been like, I don't get it. I'm doing everything you told me, and now I'm in prison. And it was a rough prison at that too. But what did Jeremiah do? He didn't backbite. He just was patient and believed in Yahuah, and knowing that He would deliver him from all things. And what we end up learning is that during the siege of Jerusalem, the food failed and people starved to death. People were so hungry that they ended up killing their babies and eating them because of hunger. But guess what? While Jeremiah was in prison, he was given a morsel of bread every single day, and he was sustained through the Most High through this act of or being thrown into jail. So, lesson to be learned is, regardless of what comes our way, we take it patiently, and we believe the word of Yahuah to be true, no matter what faces us. So, in speaking of patience, and I want to read this for you. It's from the book of Enoch, and then we'll finish this up. Well, actually, really quickly, I wanted to show you, this is Jubilees chapter 17. This is kind of a confronting witness with kind of a just different view of it. Jubilees chapter 17, verse 14, and through the end. And it came to pass in the 7th week, in the 1st year thereof, in the 1st month of this Jubilee, on the 12th of this month, there were voices in heaven regarding Avraham, that he was faithful in all that he told him, and that he loved Yahuah, and that in every affliction he was faithful. And the prince Mastema, which in this book, Mastema is Satan, came and said before Elohim, Behold, Avraham loves Yitzchak his son, and he delights in him above all things else. Bid him to offer him as a burnt offering on the altar, and you will see if he will do this command, and you will know if he is faithful in everything wherein you do try him. And Yahuah knew that Avraham was faithful in all his afflictions, for he had tried him through his country, and with famine, and he had tried him with the wealth of the kings, and had tried him again through his woman, when she was torn from him, and with circumcision, and had tried him through Ishmael and Hagar, his maidservant, when he sent them away. And in everything wherein he had tried him, he was found faithful, and his soul was not impatient. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And he was not slow to act, for he was faithful and a lover of Yahuah. Wow, that's profound. Let me read that again. And in remembering that Avraham, that we are the seed of Avraham, and that Messiah Yahusha said we should do the deeds of Avraham. So let's read this again. And in everything wherein he had tried him, he was found faithful, and his soul was not impatient, and he was not slow to act, for he was faithful and a lover of Yahuah. Hallelujah to that. Let's finish it up with the book of Enoch. This is the very last chapter of Enoch. Another book which Enoch wrote for his son Methuselah. Now listen, and for those who will come after him and keep the law, the Torah, in the last days. It's written for you. You who have done good shall wait for those days till an end is made of those who work evil, and an end of the might of the transgressors. So we are commanded to wait. We're going to wait. And wait ye indeed till sin has passed away, for their names shall be blotted out of the book of life and out of the holy books, and their seed shall be destroyed forever, and their spirits shall be slain, and they shall cry and make lamentation in a place that is a chaotic wilderness, and in the fire shall they burn, for there is no earth there. And I saw there something like an invisible cloud, for by reason of its depth I could not look over. And I saw a flame of fire blazing brightly, and things like shining mountains circling and sweeping to and fro. And I asked one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto him, What is this shining thing? For it is not a heaven, but only the flame of a blazing fire, and the voice of weeping and crying and lamentation and strong pain. And he said unto me, This place which thou seest, here are cast the spirits of sinners and blasphemers, and of those who work wickedness, and of those who pervert everything that Yahuah has spoken through the mouth of the prophets. Even the things that shall be, for some of them are written and inscribed above in the heaven, in order that the angels may read them and know that which shall befall the sinners, and the spirits of the humble, and those who have afflicted their bodies, and have been recompensed by Elohim, and of those who have been put to shame by wicked men, who love Elohim, and love neither gold nor silver, nor any of the good things which are in the world, but gave over their bodies to torture, who since they came into being longed not after earthly food, but regarded everything as a passing breath and lived accordingly. And Yahuah tried them much, and their spirits were found pure, so that they should bless his name. And all the blessings destined for them I have recounted in the books. And he hath assigned them their recompense, because they have been found to be such as loved heaven more than their life in the world. Can that be said of us, brothers and sisters? And though they were trodden under foot of wicked men, and experienced abuse and reviling from them, and were put to shame, yet they blessed me. This is the deeds of Abraham. Regardless of what came his way, he blessed the Most High. We have got to do the very same, brothers and sisters. And trust me, I'm talking to myself here. And now I will summon the spirits of the good who belong to the generation of light, and I will transform those who were born in darkness, who in the flesh were not recompensed with such honor as their faithfulness deserved. And I will bring forth in shining light those who have loved my holy name. And I will set each on the throne of his honor. And they shall be resplendent for times without number, for righteousness is the judgment of Elohim. For to the faithful he will give faithfulness in the habitation of upright paths. And they shall see those who were born in darkness led into darkness, while the righteous shall be resplendent. And the sinners shall cry aloud and see them resplendent, and they shall indeed go where days and seasons are prescribed for them. So, brothers and sisters, I pray that this was a blessing for you to hear the words and to understand the whole situation, how it happened, and to possibly glean from our own walk and for our own understanding how we, as the seed of Abraham, should also endure the testing that Abraham endured. So, may Yahuah bless you and keep you. May Yahuah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuah lift up his countenance and give you shalom. Yevarechecha Yahuah ve'yishmerecha. Ya'er Yahuah panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Yahuah panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Abraham.